Very quickly, we figured out he's dead, and it turned into a bit of this is a crime scene to some degree. CSI, crime scene wildlife.
Something in Florida's Everglades is doing what few scientists expected, hunting Burmese pythons and turning one of the swamp's most feared invaders into prey. Researchers tracking missing pythons began uncovering evidence that native predators were attacking, consuming, and even raiding the nests of these massive snakes. For years, pythons have devastated native wildlife while proving incredibly difficult to control. But now, cottonmouths, alligators, bobcats, and other predators appear to be fighting back. Could this natural resistance finally slow the invasion? Or are the pythons simply reproducing too fast for the Everglades to recover? The mysterious disappearing pythons. In 2021, a research team working deep in the Florida Everglades noticed something strange. Juvenile Burmese pythons they had tagged and were tracking with surgically implanted transmitters began to vanish without a trace. Signals that once followed regular movement patterns suddenly went silent. When researchers located the final coordinates, they found no body, no blood, no drag marks, nothing to explain the sudden disappearance. The transmitters themselves continued to pulse, perfectly functional, but their signals were emanating from someplace unexpected, inside another animal. This baffling discovery turned what seemed like a straightforward study into a wildlife mystery the team had never anticipated. It was as if the pythons were being swallowed whole, the signals beating inside an unknown predator. One python, tagged as Python 19, had moved consistently for weeks before abruptly stopping altogether. Investigators trudged through thick sawgrass and swamp water to reach its last known location, only to find a silent signal coming from within something else's stomach. This pattern repeated with two other pythons, deepening the puzzle and raising new questions about what kind of animal could consume a snake so large without leaving any trace. X-ray imaging later revealed intact python spines curled inside stomach cavities of unidentified animals. These snakes, some nearly 13 feet long and weighing over 50 pounds, were apex predators themselves, too large to disappear so completely without signs of struggle or remains. The team's years of fieldwork suddenly seemed to have missed the predator hunting these top hunters in plain sight. Researchers said it was not equipment failure, and they also confirmed the hardware and software were doing their job perfectly, with no weird hiccups. They also dismissed environmental interference as if it wasn't even part of the problem. The data came out clean, clear, precise, you know. And that meant basically only one possible conclusion. An unknown predator was moving through the Everglades, consuming entire pythons in secret, and somehow leaving no clear trace behind. A blind spot, big enough to make your head tilt. The mystery got more urgent because these weren't just any snakes. These were part of one of Florida's best documented invasive species, the kind people have been tracking for years. 3 complete live pythons were swallowed whole by something. Something that could swallow large-bodied prey without hesitation. The whole thing pointed to a new chapter in the Everglades story, the ecological fight, and all that ongoing struggle. Like the predator had been hiding in plain sight, under our nose the whole time. At first, reactions kind of swung back and forth. Disbelief, then alarm, then back again. Who or what could do this? An efficient and stealthy removal of these massive constrictors. If the data was being honest, then this predator was probably larger or more powerful than what native scientists had actually been accounting for across decades of monitoring, counting, cataloging. It was getting pretty obvious that the answer would reshape how we understand this fragile, embattled ecosystem. The disappearance of apex predators wasn't random, and it definitely wasn't a technology quirk. Something strong was quietly, and I mean quietly, shifting the balance inside this complicated wetland world. The details of this predator's identity and methods would soon emerge. But before that, we must step back and understand why a predator of pythons in Florida should have seemed impossible. The impossible predator. The idea of a predator capable of swallowing a 13-foot Burmese python in one piece was something no biologist anticipated. Burmese pythons themselves are among the top predators in the Everglades, having no natural enemies since their introduction from Southeast Asia. They evolved in ecosystems where their populations were controlled by tigers, king cobras, monitor lizards, and a host of pathogens and competitors refined over millions of years. When these pythons were introduced to Florida through the exotic pet trade in the 1980s and 1990s, no such controls came with them. Hatchlings were sold cheaply and kept as pets. But as they grew, some reaching lengths over 20 feet, owners released them into canals and swamps. Hurricane Andrew in 1992 accelerated the release, destroying local breeding facilities and flooding the wild with healthy, reproductive adults overnight. The Everglades, an ecosystem that had evolved with alligators, panthers, and bobcats, had no evolutionary memory or defense against these impervious predators. Native mammals and birds never learned to fear or avoid such a danger. The python invasion swiftly led to devastating population collapses in raccoons, opossums, bobcats, rabbits, and other once common species. Scientists have estimated the python population at tens to hundreds of thousands, perfectly camouflaged and unrelenting in hunting capacity. Despite massive efforts, bounty programs, detection dogs, thermal drones, DNA testing, and thousands of hours of field work, the results have been bleak. The numbers speak of an ecosystem quietly, steadily devoured from within. Against this backdrop, finding a predator powerful enough and specialized enough to consume pythons intact just wouldn't line up with any model anyone had. The more logical choices, like alligators and panthers, kind of fell short in practice. Alligators crush and dismember prey with violent death rolls, leaving scattered remains. Panthers slay with precise bites, but still manage to leave unmistakable tracks and evidence behind, like you can't quite hide it. Even those big black bears, although capable hunters and steady scavengers, tear prey apart, and they do not swallow constrictors whole. No predator that anyone knows from the Everglades matches the profile of an animal that could, basically, engulf an entire 13-foot snake without leaving so much as a trace. The whole mystery predator seemed to operate with a method, and with a kind of stealth that messed up every expectation people had. Researchers looked at birds of prey and other large snakes too, but found nothing that really backed up their involvement at this scale. The predator's behavior didn't just challenge what was known, it contradicted it outright. The disappearance of prey was too complete, too surgical, too controlled, and the transmitter signals, those showed continuous, steady pulses inside another body, moving through the swamp as if nothing unusual was going on, as if the environment was just normal. With data that wouldn't cooperate and theory that couldn't catch up, the team deployed cameras and started intensive surveillance where the signals went dark. Long hours stretched into days that felt like silence, billowing sawgrass, birds waiting patiently in the open, and the occasional raccoon wandering by. Then, finally, the breakthrough. The footage showed a native snake, muscular and well camouflaged, lying perfectly still and ready to strike. The strike itself was explosive and precise, a Florida cottonmouth ambushing the python and swallowing it inch by inch, agonizing inch by agonizing inch, while the camera captured every moment like it was planned. So the impossible predator wasn't some mythical beast at all. It was a well-known native species that had been overlooked as a major python predator. This revelation would change how scientists viewed the battle for the Everglades, revealing resilience and adaptation under a looming ecological crisis. To appreciate this further, it helps to understand the broader history and impact of Burmese pythons in Florida's wetlands. The settled invasion. Burmese pythons did not evolve in North America. Their origins lie in Southeast Asia, regions like Myanmar, Thailand, and Indonesia, where ecosystems and food webs evolved over millions of years to regulate their populations naturally.
The king cobras, whose diet is primarily other snakes. They're the main predators of Burmese and reticulated pythons in Asia, playing a crucial role in controlling their numbers and maintaining a balanced ecosystem.
Predators like king cobras and tigers, competitors such as monitor lizards, and numerous parasites and diseases kept them in balance. In stark contrast, the Everglades presented a new world without these checks. Introduced mainly through the exotic pet trade, pythons arrived as small, appealing pets, but rapidly grew into formidable predators. The turning point came in 1992 when Hurricane Andrew destroyed breeding facilities, releasing hundreds of large, mature snakes directly into suitable habitats. Here, they encountered prey that had no evolutionary experience with such a threat. Mammals, birds, and other wildlife adapted to threats like alligators or panthers had no defenses against a massive constrictor that slays by suffocation and camouflage. These animals simply did not flee or hide, making them easy targets. The impact was swift and devastating. Within decades, raccoon populations in affected areas plummeted by over 99%. Opossums, bobcats, marsh rabbits, muskrats, and cottontail rabbits essentially vanished where pythons dominated. Adult white-tailed deer and even American alligators fell prey to these giant snakes. More than 50 different bird species disappeared from python diets, including migratory birds that traveled thousands of miles from Canada. This rapid collapse dismantled an ecosystem built over thousands of years. The sheer scale of the invasion created what some experts call an invisible army, the pythons, patiently reshaping the Everglades from within. Despite government bans, bounty programs, thermal drones, and removal challenges, the crisis deepened. The federal and state response included outlawing importation, training detection dogs, deploying aerial surveys, and organizing the annual Florida Python Challenge, where hunters capture as many pythons as possible. Yet, these measures have barely made a dent. Researchers agree that the Everglades as they once existed are effectively lost to this invasive wave. As this grim context set the stage, the unexpected discovery of native predators quietly eating pythons whole offered a new angle, a potential shift in the ecological balance that many had thought impossible. The efforts to understand this phenomenon would reveal surprising adaptations and alliances among native wildlife, changing the narrative of the Everglades struggle. Transitioning from this established invasion crisis, we now look at how technology and observation uncovered the surprising new predator in this ongoing battle. The search for answers. As the mysterious disappearances of radio-tagged pythons continued, the research team grew determined to uncover what was happening in the shadows of the Everglades. The signals weren't simply failing, they were transmitting from inside something else. To solve this puzzle, scientists deployed an array of motion-activated cameras around the last known locations of the missing snakes. These devices, placed strategically throughout dense vegetation and swamp edges, captured days of empty footage, swaying grasses, silently waiting birds, and the occasional raccoon wandering by. The long stretches of stillness tested the patience and resolve of the researchers. Then, finally, the breakthrough arrived in a sudden burst of movement. The footage revealed a thick-bodied, muscular snake lying perfectly camouflaged in leaf litter along the water's edge. It wasn't hiding in panic. It was waiting patiently, blending so seamlessly with its environment that it was nearly invisible to human eyes. This snake had chosen an ambush spot where the colors of the fallen palms and decomposing leaves matched its patterned skin exactly, funneling unsuspecting prey to its reach. Suddenly, the stillness broke into action. A rapid strike faster than the camera's frame rate could capture. The predator struck a juvenile Burmese python with precision and deadly speed. It seized the python's tail and began one of nature's slowest and most relentless slayings, unhinging its jaws and methodically walking its prey deeper into its throat. The process was painstaking and took over an hour, painstakingly captured on infrared video. The predator was revealed to be the Florida cottonmouth, a venomous pit viper that has lived in these wetlands for thousands of years, but was never known to hunt large snakes like pythons in this way. X-ray images confirmed the sighting. Cottonmouths had swallowed juvenile pythons tail first, gradually consuming snakes nearly as long as themselves. pushing physical limits once thought impossible for this species. This discovery challenged long-held beliefs, showing a native species was adapting, or perhaps always equipped, to prey on one of the most dangerous invasive animals threatening the Everglades. Researchers described watching cottonmouths slay and consume these snakes as witnessing evolution in action, a natural response emerging out of necessity. The Florida cottonmouth, scientifically named Agkistrodon conanti, is often underestimated, typically measuring from 30 to 48 inches, with rare individuals reaching over 6 feet. They thrive in the semi-aquatic landscapes that Burmese pythons invaded: flooded cypress swamps, drowned grass prairies, and root-choked black water where sight is limited. The cottonmouth's famous defensive display, coiling and gaping its mouth to reveal white tissue, warns potential threats, though its true weapon lies unseen: sensor pits between its eyes and nostrils that detect infrared radiation. These heat-sensing pits give the cottonmouth, like a near-supernatural thing going on, the ability to track prey in darkness or in those murky waters. Warm-blooded animals and even cold-blooded pythons that are warmed by digestion or simply basking turn into bright, blazing marks in the thermal spectrum. The cottonmouth can pick up temperature differences down to a fraction of a degree or so hiding becomes pretty pointless. What they inject is hemotoxic venom, and over millions and millions of years, it turns into this potent biochemical cocktail that tears up tissues and blood cells at a fast rate. This venom begins doing damage almost immediately, starting to slay and break down tissue before the snake even starts swallowing. Once envenomated, prey usually falls quickly, and the venom's enzymes begin digesting muscle fibers and internal organs from the inside. By the time the cottonmouth slowly pulls its meal down the throat, the prey is already softened and decaying, which makes that long, awkward swallowing process a lot easier. And the whole approach feels like a stealthy strike and release, so they can avoid risky physical brawls. Cottonmouths are specialists at eating other snakes, regularly taking in an impressive 27 species, and yes, that can include members of their own kind. They are ophiophagus by instinct and evolution, rather than some recent new diet plan. The arrival of Burmese pythons only added more options to an already diverse menu. Their hunting style is precise in a way that's almost annoying. One lightning-fast bite aimed at a vulnerable spot, then they back off and wait until the venom does its job. That makes them especially effective predators of juvenile pythons, exploiting the narrow window where those young snakes are still small and most vulnerable. Finding cottonmouths as major predators of pythons changes how the Everglades conflict looks. It supports an overlooked pathway of resistance and adaptation among native species, quietly and methodically pushing back against the python invasion, mostly beneath the radar of human observers. In the face of this, other native predators have not remained idle. Cottonmouths unleashed. The impact of cottonmouths preying on juvenile Burmese pythons was only the beginning of a broader and growing coalition of native species pushing back against the invasive threat. Researchers' radio tracking data uncovered that not only cottonmouths, but also American alligators were slaying and consuming pythons. Surprisingly, even mid-sized alligators around 9 feet long were taking on snakes far larger than expected, overturning assumptions that only enormous bull alligators could handle such prey. These alligators use classic ambush tactics, lurking underwater until the python ventures near, then lunging explosively, securing the prey in a powerful death roll that quickly disables and dismembers it. Instead of retreating or yielding to the python invasion, these ancient predators have quietly persisted and continued defending their territories from the intruders. Their successes, however, have remained largely unrecorded until recent transmitter recoveries provided the proof. Adding to this coalition, cameras captured a historic event in June 2021. A bobcat, a native predator whose population had itself been decimated by pythons, aggressively attacking a Burmese python nest. Unlike opportunistic scavenging, the bobcat demonstrated deliberate strategy. It slashed at the nesting female with its front paws, forced her backward with sustained aggression, and proceeded to methodically raid the nest one egg at a time. This was the first documented evidence of a native mammal actively dismantling a python nest through offensive strategies rather than avoidance. The bobcat had no evolutionary history with the python, but displayed rapid behavioral adaptation, using offense to manage threat and access food. Researchers marveled at how this new predatory behavior developed within a single generation, a remarkable example of wildlife learning and resilience in real time. Further observations revealed birds of prey like owls and hawks striking at juvenile pythons, plucking them from exposed resting spots during dawn and dusk to prevent them from growing into larger, more dangerous predators. Large mammals, including black bears and Florida panthers, also joined the assault, taking pythons opportunistically when chances arose. Altogether, this diverse group, pit vipers in the undergrowth, raptors overhead, bobcats at the nests, alligators in the water, bears and panthers on land, forms an uncoordinated but powerful front against the Burmese python invasion. Each operates independently, driven by instinct and survival, doing what natural selection has prepared them for, protecting their territory from a competitor that did not belong. Despite their efforts, this alliance faces a brutal reality. The reproductive power of the Burmese python remains overwhelming. Female pythons produce anywhere from 12 to 36 eggs per clutch, sometimes more.
Even if only a fraction of female pythons successfully reproduce, the napkin math suggests it would only take a few generations to go from a few hundred to a few 100,000.
And fiercely protect their nests through incubation, shivering muscles to keep the eggs warm. These constrictors mature quickly, grow rapidly in nutrient-rich environments, and live for decades, producing many offspring who reach breeding age in just a few years. The relentless breeding cycle means that for every juvenile python taken by a cottonmouth, every nest raided by a bobcat, and every python slayed by an alligator, dozens more hatch elsewhere. The vastness and inaccessibility of the Everglades further hamper removal efforts. No search protocol or drone sweep can cover every hidden bayou and flooded glade. Since official removal programs began, humans have captured and eliminated over 5,000 pythons, with hundreds removed in a single annual weekend. Yet, experts admit these numbers barely scratch the surface. Pythons are masters of concealment, capable of flattening their bodies against roots and leaf litter or slipping underwater unnoticed, making detection and capture extraordinarily difficult. Still, every native predator's strike matters. It buys time for the ecosystem, allowing predators to refine new behaviors and pass them on, helping researchers develop better methods and giving the Everglades a fighting chance to defend itself deep within its biological memory. The current battle is one of countless silent skirmishes, waged by predators adapting on their own terms, without waiting for human intervention or permission. The cameras keep rolling, and the struggle for survival continues beneath the swamp's surface. Alliance of native predators. The fight against invasive Burmese pythons isn't being waged by cottonmouths alone. An unexpected alliance of native predators has quietly emerged across the Everglades. Radio tracking revealed that American alligators, often overlooked in this battle, are actively preying on pythons. Surprisingly, it's not just the massive bull alligators that manage this feat. Smaller adults, around 9 feet long, have been documented slaying and consuming large snakes. This defies previous assumptions that only the biggest gators could handle full-grown pythons. Alligators use their classic ambush tactics, lying motionless underwater until a python ventures near. Then, with lightning speed, they lunge, grabbing their prey before executing a brutal death roll to subdue and dismember it. This method has allowed them to maintain territories and continue resisting the python invasion, although much of their success has gone unrecorded until recoveries of transmitters shed new light on their role. Cameras also captured rare footage of a bobcat attacking a python nest in June 2021. This was a significant discovery because bobcats had previously been thought too scarce and impacted by python presence to play a meaningful role. The bobcat's behavior was aggressive and strategic. It slashed at the nesting female to keep her away, then attacked the eggs one by one. Unlike simple scavenging, this was a calculated raid, marking the first documented evidence of a native mammal proactively undermining pythons at their reproductive source. This rapid behavioral adaptation stunned researchers. Without any evolutionary history with Burmese pythons, the bobcat assessed the threat and resource opportunity and developed an effective offensive strategy within a single generation. This ability to learn, innovate, and pass down new behaviors showcases resilience and rapid ecological response in the face of an overwhelming invasive predator. Other native species kinda joined the whole struggle too. You see it in raptors like owls and hawks. They've been watched picking off juvenile pythons from exposed perches around dawn and dusk, stopping them from turning into bigger, more dangerous adults. Black bears and Florida panthers, elusive, strong, have also been spotted taking advantage of openings to slay pythons whenever they show up close enough. In the end, these animals make up a disparate but fierce coalition. Pit vipers, raptors, mammals, and reptiles all independently converge on the same target, the invasive python. There's no real coordination, no mastermind planning, just millions of years of evolutionary practice steering these species toward defending their territories from an introduced competitor. And somehow, this quiet pushback has been happening, largely ignored by humans. Even so, this promise comes with steep hurdles. Burmese pythons have reproductive power that feels non-stop. Females lay about 12 to 36 eggs, sometimes more, and they aggressively guard the clutch by shivering muscles to generate warmth. A rare thing in cold-blooded animals, so the eggs survive. In Florida's nutrient-heavy environment, pythons grow quickly, reaching breeding size in 3 or 4 years, and they can live for 2 decades or longer. Every generation brings out dozens of young that spread the numbers fast, and that momentum can overwhelm what native predators manage on their own. The Everglades' size and tangled layout make removal even harder. No search crew or drone can cover everything, and python camouflage is just uncanny, so locating them becomes almost impossible. This coalition symbolizes a natural rebellion against invasion, one that may hold keys to the Everglades' survival, or at least a delay of its collapse. The harsh truth, however, lies in the vast reproductive edge pythons maintain. The brutal reality. The reproductive biology of Burmese pythons is staggering and relentless, presenting a brutal math problem for the defenders of the Everglades.
She can be surprisingly maternal. She arranges her eggs in a pile and returns to warm her eggs with her reheated body.
A single female can lay upwards of 36 eggs, or sometimes even more, in one clutch. She guards her nest for 60 to 70 days, using rhythmic muscle contractions to maintain constant warmth, an unusual brooding behavior among reptiles. During this period, she neither eats nor leaves the nest, fiercely defending it against threats. Pythons mature quickly. Their rapid growth in Florida's resource-rich environment means some can add feet of length annually, reaching breeding age within just a few years. They can live for over 20 years, producing many offspring over their lifetime. This reproductive pace greatly outstrips the predation pressure native animals can place on juveniles and nests. Each juvenile python that a cottonmouth consumes, or each clutch raided by a bobcat, might sound like progress, but dozens more python hatchlings typically emerge elsewhere each breeding season. The python's numbers multiply across a landscape so vast and inaccessible that no survey or removal effort can cover more than a small fraction each year. Since those removal programs started, hunters have bagged more than 5,000 pythons, and competitive things like the yearly Florida Python Challenge wipe out hundreds in one weekend. Still, experts like Dr. Frank Mazzotti will say, out loud, that all of this just barely taps the surface. The population keeps expanding even with human pushback and ecological resistance. It's like it never really slows. The python's skill at hiding is kind of almost unreal. They press their bodies flat to mesh with roots and leaf litter, slide under the water without much sound, and then somehow compress into gaps no person could comfortably navigate. Even trained detection dogs and newer drone setups have a hard time tracking them reliably. So getting their spread under control stays an ongoing grind, and it can feel exhausting. But still, every native predator strike counts, because it shows resilience and buys the ecosystem time to figure out stronger responses. If predators keep developing more efficient hunting habits and researchers keep improving removal methods, maybe the balance could shift. But whether that happens soon or at all, well, that part is uncertain. The Everglades fight against the python invasion is far from settled. Native species are pushing back in surprising, practical ways, yet the odds stay brutal. The big question is whether those adaptations can actually narrow the gap against the python's reproductive power, and that uncertainty still lingers with scientists and conservationists. Now, as native predators step up their relentless campaigns, the battle wages on in every shadow and hidden channel of the Everglades. The fight continues. The battle for the Everglades is far from over. Burmese pythons remain one of the ecosystem's most dangerous invaders, but something remarkable is happening beneath the surface. Native predators, including cottonmouths, bobcats, alligators, and raptors, are adapting, finding new ways to hunt and challenge the snakes that have disrupted their home. Scientists are documenting this resistance using radio transmitters, trail cameras, and field observations. Every recovered tracker and recorded attack reveals more about how native wildlife is responding. Cottonmouths have been observed preying on young pythons, while bobcats have raided python nests, suggesting predators are beginning to recognize the invaders as both prey and competition. But the biggest question is whether they can adapt fast enough. Burmese pythons reproduce quickly, and their camouflage is so good it makes them pretty hard to find. New hatchlings keep slipping into the ecosystem, even as adults move out across remote parts of the Everglades. If you rely only on natural predation, it probably won't stop this invasion anytime soon. So, human intervention still matters a lot. Programs focused on python removal, better tracking technology, continued scientific research, and public awareness are all moving in the same direction, alongside native predators, to slow the snake's spread. There isn't a single clear fix. Instead, restoring balance will take a lot of separate efforts that have to work together. The hopeful part is that the Everglades isn't just giving up. Its native wildlife is responding, adjusting, and even finding ways to push back. Researchers will keep observing closely, collecting evidence from one of the world's more unusual ecological battles. Each successful hunt adds another bit of information about how this system might one day recover some of what it has lost. And out there tonight, tucked under dark waters and thick vegetation, a native predator may strike another python. The Everglades is still fighting, and its story is getting rewritten one quiet strike at a time. The surprising story of Florida's cottonmouths and native predators quietly fighting back against invasive pythons reminds us that nature is resilient, even in crisis. Though the battle is far from won, these adaptations offer hope for the Everglades' future. If you found this insight fascinating, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's wildest mysteries. And before you go, watch the next video on your screen to uncover another incredible story of nature fighting against the odds.